Wealth is a Choice podcast. Boom.
Let's listen to it. Let's listen to it.
Thanks, Bill. Appreciate you being here, man.
Hey, happy to be here.
Yeah. So it's where you live, huh?
We spend quite a bit of time down here, that's for sure.
Yeah.
You know, we are just a stone's throw from the Capitol, out the window here, right across the way from the Michigan House office building.
Yeah. Hey, I'm just curious, as I was walking in here, those sidestep, but when things were shut down, and I know Lansing isn't all back in the office yet, did that change your physical presence being here? Did it change how you communicate with people?
Oh, yeah, in a tremendous way. Actually, it opened up the door for a whole new world, if you will. We actually spend more time, even today, on virtual calls with members of the legislature and staff, and on telephone calls with regulators, or for that matter, even our clients.
Okay.
So yeah, I mean, it's limited the amount of time I actually come to Lansing versus pre-COVID.
So in a way, it opened up the door for you to have conversations more often?
Yes.
Well, that's
yes.
wild. That's good.
Yeah.
Well, good. A positive story about because for me, it kind of bums me out to not see people in office, but that's good.
Yeah, I mean, I think what we found is, typically we would live our world in Lansing Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and then on Mondays and Fridays you would do a lot of that office work. And now what you're finding is your Mondays and Fridays are really filled with phone calls or virtual calls, or actually meeting with members or clients in district.
Okay. Well, I'd like you, rather than me try to describe what you do, I'd like you to just let us know what you do. And what part of the objective of the conversation today is to help kind of lift the curtain so people understand the role that lobbyists and outside parties and organizations play in legislative effort, and the productivity of that relationship. And because a lot of people are skeptical sometimes about it, if there's also times when that is not as productive as it could be. Maybe there's some where it doesn't work out as clean as it should. But yeah. I'd love you to explain what you do.
Yeah, absolutely. So I get this question a lot, and I talk to a lot of different groups, and I always like to start answering this question by talking about where the word lobbyist comes from.
Okay.
And what a lot of folks don't fully understand is, as Americans, we have a Constitution. Mm-hmm. And one of those rights ensconced in our Constitution is our ability to redress the government for grievances.
Okay.
Basically, we have the right to come talk to our elected members of the legislature, Congress. Any of our elected members have to be accessible to the public.
Okay.
And in a lot of times, a lot of people don't really understand what that means. And that means you can go meet with your legislator at coffee hours in their offices. They have to make time for you because they're your representative.
Okay.
Now, most people have regular jobs, right? And they're impacted by a lot of things that the government does. And a lot of times it gets so overwhelming, they're like, how do I make a change, right? Yeah. And so I like to say the world is run by those who show up. And if you don't have time to show up, you hire someone to show up for you.
Okay.
And that's really what a lobbyist will do. We will show up, we will redress the government, we will go talk to the government for you on behalf of you to make change in government. And
by the way, I love that the world is run by those who show up. Not always about who has money, who knows somebody, it's showing up. That's a big deal anybody can do.
100%, and it is, and this is where actually the term lobbyist comes from.
Okay.
And generally, Ulysses S. Grant, when he became president, Ulysses S. Grant used to go hang out in a local hotel lobby and smoke a cigar, drink bourbon, and do whatever dinners or what have you. So individuals at that time who wanted to get something done with the government, who wanted to get something done with Grant, knew that he hung out in the lobby of the Willard Hotel in Washington, D.C.
Okay.
So they would go hang out in the lobby of the Willard Hotel, and they hence became known as lobbyists.
Okay.
And when you look at a Capitol, if you walk across the street to our Capitol, we have a lobby outside the halls of the chamber of the Senate and the House, where the lobbyists like to hang out to talk to the members of the legislature.
Okay.
That's someone anyone can do, right? Anyone can go talk to their legislators, or you can hire a guy like me or my partners or my colleagues here to go talk to the legislatures for you to get stuff done.
Okay. And you see that a lot when you go to the Capitol. They're in session. They come out. They talk to people. They go back to session. They come out. They talk to people throughout the day.
You see that on a regular basis, and it's not just lobbyists, right? Getting back to my motto about showing up. It's on any given day, you can walk into the lobby of the legislature, and you've got different citizens groups, everyday average person who's just upset about maybe something happening in their district, or maybe the latest thing now is data centers, right? Data centers is the latest boogeyman, if you will, out in the world, and we can talk all day long about data centers, but it doesn't really matter. If it matters to you, then it matters, right? And so if if it matters to you enough to show up, you show up at the Capitol and you go tell your elected members of the Congress or the elected members of the state legislature why it matters to you. And believe it or not, they listen.
I've seen that. And they read their emails, or at least see their emails. Hopefully somebody reads them, but if they see them. And if they get 5 emails on a subject, it means something. If they get 500 on a subject, it means something to them, whether or not they read every one or not. But that collective organization of having a voice over something makes a difference.
100%. I want to use a current example that we've got going on. There was some legislation that was introduced a while ago that deals with commercial fishing on the Great Lakes. In full disclosure, I represent the sport fishing industry, the charter boat industry.
Being like back in the 90s?
No, actually, just 30 days ago.
Okay.
And we're right in the middle of.
So a while ago, 30 days now. Dang.
Yeah, right.
Because I remember big changes back in the 90s. I grew up in the UP, and there were big changes back then. But all right, go ahead.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, this is an ongoing issue. We see it every 2 years or so, and this was legislation was introduced. It came out, and word got out that, hey, we're going to have a committee hearing on this.
Okay.
And so there was a lot of sort of consternation and uproar in the sport fishing community and the local port towns around Michigan, and they're all with their hands up. What do we do? What do we do? What do we do? And again, I always go back to my model. I said, we have to show up. Showing up into today's world is different than perhaps back in Grant's days when you showed up at the lobby of the Willard.
Right.
Nowadays, you show up by making telephone calls to your legislators, by sending emails to your legislator, by getting on their Facebook post and putting on a Facebook post to let other individuals know. You show up in committee and testify. You organize. You pull different groups together that might have the same concern that you have. And sometimes folks will sit back and say, oh my gosh, I can't believe this is happening to me. Well, guess what? There's hundreds or thousands of people just like you on the same issue. And if you speak up, whether that's on social media or by sending an email, legislators listen. So much so that we've caused such an uproar of opposition to these bills. I think it's going to be very difficult for the legislature to move this through, because even the members who've sponsored the bills have taken their names off it and said, I didn't realize this was such a big deal to my constituents and the greater good. I was told the story by someone else over here that I didn't fully understand. Now that I understand the issue because people showed up, we're out.
Okay. So just talk about the very nature of the legislative body. Somebody gets elected. They ran for office for some reason. Sometimes people are motivated by something. They're angry about something. They want to improve something, whatever. There's a lot of reasons why people become a senator or a house rep or work in the government. So they're in there. They have their experience, their knowledge, whatever they studied, wherever field they worked in, whatever hobbies that they had. But what they know is very small compared to the world of the entire citizenship of a state or a country, right? And so how do these people, in this case, understand all the unintended consequences of a potential bill or all the ramifications that can happen because of a bill? They just wouldn't be aware of it. How do they get that information?
Well, again, they count on their staff. They count on their constituents more than anything. And they count on the lobby corps. I've been in town 25 years. I've been here longer than any member of the state house or the state senate. I've seen the same dumb bills introduced over and over again that sound really great but have crazy unintended consequences until we come to them and say, hey, do you know this does this?
Okay.
Or someone in their district says, hey, this bill does this, and that's not good, or vice versa. I love to talk about everyone. I'm an old guy, so we go back and remember the Saturday morning cartoons and how a bill becomes a law, right?
Yeah.
Well, what a lot of people don't know is how a bill becomes a bill.
I still got those tunes in my head.
Absolutely. I'm just a bill.
Yeah.
But it's like, so how's a bill become a bill? And you hit the nail on the head. Everyone comes to the legislature with their own backgrounds, right? I've said they come typically for one of three reasons. They're angry about something. Someone basically challenged them to go make a difference, or they really have a calling, right? And then there's others that just like the game, but we don't talk about them. But so they all come with their own backgrounds, and they don't have all the answers. And so where do the ideas for bills come from? And if you think of the little guy running around on Capitol Hill with a bill, right? And you see him on the steps of the Capitol, and picture a bunch of circles around him with arrows or people shouting at him. Those are all the influences that bill or that legislature is subjected to in bill ideas. So bill ideas come from a lot of crazy places. They come from the legislature, the legislature themselves, right? They come to town and says, hey, I need to make a difference. I've got these bill ideas that could make this part of the world better, right? They hear from their constituents in coffee hours. Guys come to them, women come to them with ideas in their coffee hours. They hear from groups like a group that you and I are both familiar with, the Michigan Bear Hunters in Michigan, one of the larger sportsmen's groups in town, in the state, will come to their legislator with, hey, we've got an idea for a bill that would make bear hunting safer. And individuals like Senator John DeMoose in particular knew nothing about bear hunting before he came to the legislature. Knew it was out there, knew it was a big constituent base, but that individual was presented with some bills ideas, and he's like, yeah, I like that. That makes some sense. Representative Parker Fairburn, same deal, an avid hunter, but didn't know a lot about bear hunting. We brought stuff to him again. So interest groups, right? Lobbyists will bring bills to legislators at the time. Staff will bring bills to legislators at the time. They might be listening to a podcast like this and say, that's a great idea.
Yeah.
And the point is a legislator, there is a lot of these voices that are all around this legislator before a bill ever becomes a bill.
Okay.
And that's where it's important for people to show up and talk to their legislators and be loud. Because as I like to say, I've got a PowerPoint presentation that does this, right? The next slide after I do that one, it's like, which one of the circles do you want to be? Do you want to be the big circle or the little circle? Now, I'm not saying being loud and obnoxious. I'm saying show up on a regular basis, have reasonable conversations, be professional, be polite, be the big circle or the loudest voice in the room when you're showing up.
Okay. And it is important to be logical and be human. People don't like to get yelled at all day long.
So I wrote a Substack called Lessons from the Tiles.
Yeah.
And my most recent Substack was a lesson I learned from my mother, which is true here. When you're shouting, you're losing.
Okay.
The louder you shout and the less professional and polite and statesman-like you are, the less likely your showing up is going to matter.
Okay.
It's less likely that a legislator is going to hear you. You can't hear the legislator responding to you if you're shouting and if you're loud. You have to be the most reasonable voice in the room. That oftentimes is where things get done.
Okay. Are there traits that you see in legislative body, a House rep or a senator, that you can see somebody come in? Like you said, you've been around the city longer than a lot of the people here have been. Do you see something where you could say, yeah, this person's going to make a difference, this person's going to have a tough time, this person doesn't, can you identify things ahead of time? Is it that obvious now?
Yes and no.
Okay.
Yes and no. Oftentimes you will sort of have a first impression of a legislator as
Okay.
they come in, and oftentimes it's proven wrong.
Okay.
We can pick the Mr. Smiths of the world out.
Yeah.
The very idealistic individuals that come down and they come in with their own sense of ideology, and this is the way things are going to be done, and I watch Saturday morning cartoons. This is how things get done,
Yeah.
right? It's really not how things get done.
Okay.
The ones that do the best are the ones that adapt the best, and you need to adapt to changing times, events that go on, and you can't lose your head when things don't go right.
Okay.
And the best legislators are those who can adapt, overcome, and find compromise, and realize that good cannot be the enemy, or perfect cannot be the enemy of good.
Okay.
You're not going to get everything you want. So you have to find that happy middle ground.
Okay. Can you give an example of like this process of a bill coming to idea, developing,
Yeah.
it's not implemented yet, where unintended consequences are discovered during that process, and where the checks and balances play out? Because I believe this is a really good checks and balance system. And I think some people get freaked out that this thing's going to push through, this is going to push through, and life's going to change forever. But sometimes it doesn't happen immediately.
Yeah.
But there is a lot of swing, a lot of checks and balances. Can you give any examples of where that's played out during this process?
I have a lot of them.
Okay.
I'm going to try to pick a simple one, and it's one that I've got a bit of a lesson on. This goes back a few years. I had a client come to me, and they were trying to do some things in one of the larger cities in the state, and it appeared to be a very localized issue.
Okay.
And they came to me and said, if we could just remove these 5 words of the law,
Okay.
we would be able to potentially maximize some additional investment in our downtown.
Okay.
But right now, these 5 words are really holding us up. And we don't understand why these 5 words are here. Right?
Okay.
This is an older law, but the State Department is pushing back. Not the State Department, but the department, the locals, I think it was the MEDC at the time,
Okay.
was saying you can't do what you want to do because of these 5 words. I was like, oh, that's a slam dunk.
Okay.
I mean, if we don't really understand what these 5 words are, then let's just go get rid of them, right?
Okay.
And let's talk about the good we can do if we got rid of these 5 words.
Okay.
So we put the bill in and kind of started working through it, and everyone seemed to think, oh, this makes a lot of sense. In fact, the staff we were working with at the time came to us and said, hey, you know what? Not only should we take the 5 words out of this section of the law, we ought to take them out of this section of the law. Let's make the law consistent. That's what we're here to do, make things easier. Let's kind of move forward. Let's get this done, right? Run it through the House process. I think I had maybe 2 no votes for people who are just no's on anything, right?
Yeah.
Goes to the Senate process. We get it right up to the Senate floor. And all of a sudden, another stakeholder group came out of the nowhere that we hadn't been in any committees or hadn't seen anything before. And they're like, hey, wait a minute. If you take these 5 words out, it screws us. And we're like, huh? Like, where have you been? And we had no idea. And it was a very obscure section of law that was put in place 40 some odd years ago. And we're like, oh, again, we then sat down and said, okay, well, here's what we're trying to accomplish. Here's what you need to accomplish.
Yep.
Working with our senators and our legislators, found a compromise that worked for us and didn't then have the unintended consequences of screwing one of the other cities.
Okay.
And so we're able to kind of work through that. And that stuff happens all of the time.
Okay.
We see it on a regular basis. I like to use an expression that my father, who was an 83-year-old Vietnam vet, always liked to use growing up. And
Okay.
he would always like to say, sometimes you just gotta You got to do a little reconnaissance by fire, right? You got to shoot into the woods and see if anyone comes out at you.
Okay.
And oftentimes we do the best we can as lobbyists and stakeholders and elected members to get out and sort of vet bills prior to kind of putting them out in the wild and before they get out in committee. But sometimes you got to put them out there and see who's going to shoot at you.
Okay.
Right? And you have to hope the process works. And I would say 9 out of 10 times the process works.
Okay.
Just like it did with that bill that I was working on for the city of Grand Rapids.
Okay. So you're trying to help a group in development without trying to hurt another group in development. And if they hadn't said anything, people would never know.
They would never know. That group showed up, even though they showed up at the last minute, their voice was heard. And it was, like I said, a small, obscure group. And we were able to get it done. Yeah. And that's not uncommon.
Did they think, by chance, when they first spoke up, did they think they were intentionally trying to be harmed? I'm just kind of curious. Or did they just think, hey, you missed us?
You know, in that particular case, I think it was like, they're like, hey, what are you doing?
Yeah.
Right? There are cases, right, where they're like, hey, we know you guys are trying to stick it to us.
Okay.
Right? There are competing interests in everything in life.
Okay.
Right? You have competing business interests, competing sports interests, competing legislative interests.
Yep.
And you get the best work done when you try to work with groups.
Okay.
At some point, there comes a time when perhaps you can't work together. Okay. And you have to take a shot across the bow. And you just have to hope that your message is stronger than someone else's message. And sometimes, for lack of a better word, you got to go to war.
Okay.
And that happens on a regular basis as well. It's not as often on the other side of things.
Yeah.
Because you really do get things done when you're closer to the middle and you're closer to, I like to say, if you're 1 or 2 standard deviations off the mean, you can usually find compromise.
Okay. So in the legislative body, like if two parties have different perspective or interest on something, I don't know how to ask this or say this, but like the citizenship as a whole may be also affected by either one of these things. What's the objective of the legislative body? Is it to cater to these two interests or recognize the society as a whole, or how does that play out?
Ultimately, it comes down to the answer to the voters, right?
Okay.
And that happens on a regular basis. You can have interest groups that are, pushing something forward, and you got competing interests. But ultimately, the greater citizenry usually wins out. Okay. Right? I mean, a legislator doesn't get reelected if he's not answering to his constituents, if he's not listening to his voters, and doing the best for the most.
Okay. One, like the devil that comes to mind that people yell about all the time is like big pharma. And I think people assume like there's business that's pushing, completely controlling an agenda, and maybe it is trying to control some stuff, but there's also other things going on that is against the wishes of an entity like that a lot of times people don't see. How often do you see things like that are happening where people assume this thing is happening, or maybe it is really happening, but at the end of the day, there's more compromise to the citizenship?
You hit on a great example, one I'm very familiar with, because we do represent a lot of pharmaceutical companies here. But it's not just pharmaceutical companies. We actually see that more now than we ever have, and I think that is because of the growth of social media and 24/7 news and the soundbite. Right? I would say there's always a story behind a soundbite. There's always a story behind a social media post, and there's usually 2 sides to that story, and it's very easy to scapegoat and to demonize organizations or stakeholders with things like, oh my God, big pharma's just making a whole bunch of money on the backs of us, right?
Okay.
Why is it so much cheaper over here, right? Why, and it doesn't matter. Like insurance is a great example. We have one of the highest car insurance rates in the state of Michigan, and it's a very complex issue as to why we have high.
It's confusing as hell, man.
It's confusing as hell, absolutely. And it's very easy to point to the insurance companies, right? Very easy to point to the insurance companies and say, hey, they're the ones doing it to us.
Yeah.
Utility companies, another great example, right? A lot of folks don't know we have some of the lowest utility rates in the Midwest, right? We do a better job controlling our utilities anywhere, right? But it's very easy to point to the utility companies because, again, we pay that bill every month.
Okay.
And in a rising rate inflation era like we have today, that utility bill becomes a larger percentage of what we're paying every month.
Okay.
Data centers is a great example,
Yep.
right? We all love our cell phones. We all love Amazon.
Yep.
We all love to go to Google and say, hey, what's the closest 3 Michelin star restaurant to me, right?
Yep.
Well, that's all AI. That all comes from data centers,
Yep.
right? So, but it's very easy to point to and scapegoat and make someone a boogeyman without knowing the full story. Because a lot of times the full story takes a little bit of time. And again, we see that on a regular basis. And it's one of the reasons I think you see really, both at the national level and at the state level, the legislative process come to a halt.
Yeah.
It gets ground to a halt. I mean, I'll use data centers, and believe it or not, I don't really have a dog in that fight. I just love to watch it and see what's going on.
Yeah.
And when you see, local township halls, which a local township hall or a local city hall is the closest form of pure democracy we have in this country, right? You fill a city hall of folks opposed to something.
Yep.
It's pretty easy to shut something down.
Yep.
And you're seeing that across the country and across the state. And again, there's a story behind that, but it's just real easy to say, not in my backyard.
Yeah. Yeah, we have a tough time with that in this country. Maybe anywhere, I don't know. I know this country better than other places, but we don't want a landfill in our backyard. We don't want a data center. We don't want a lot of things in our backyard, but we rely on them. So they got to get put somewhere. We don't want a mine in our backyard, like all these things. It's tough. Yeah. So you do represent a lot of the sportsmen and sportswomen industry. And I think that's an industry that can be misunderstood because a lot of people don't hunt and fish, don't engage in the outdoors, don't really understand that side of life. And I think it's a real pure side of life. The only red meat we don't buy red meat at a grocery store. It's however many deer I shoot a year. That's what we eat. I think it's wonderful. I think it's, I grew up in the UP. I understand it. But you do spend a lot of time with that group. And it's important to have a voice in a city where maybe not a lot of people engage in a particular hobby or activity.
Yeah, especially with the sportsmen's group, and we do spend a lot of time in that conservation and sportsmen's groups, and we spend a lot of time telling that story. Yeah. Right? The story you just touched on about the Michigan heritage and about the amount of conservation work that our sportsmen's groups do, and when we have, you hit really on a great example. So I will say this: we have 148 members of the state legislature between the House and the Senate. Okay. Last season, 24 of those members pulled hunting licenses. Okay. So that's less than 20% of that legislature actually pulled a hunting license. Right. A few more pulled fishing licenses. Okay. Right. So it really then falls upon the organizations, myself, and my team here to tell that story and to educate those legislators. Mm-hmm. And we spend a lot of time educating those individuals on hunting and sportsmen's issues and hunting and sportsmen's matters. And that's extremely important that they show up. And in those groups, because of the way that they conduct themselves and the way that we tell their story, those groups are able to have an impact on legislation that's not just maybe hunting and sportsmen's related. Yep. And maybe I'm touching a third rail, but we had last session We had some firearm legislation that went through.
Okay.
Again, I'm not going to take a position one way or the other on it. I have my own personal feelings on it. But because of the work that the Sportsman's Group had done, we were able to shape that legislation in such a way that it wouldn't negatively impact the hunting and fishing community.
Yep.
And I think that was really critical because the first draft of the bills that came out were clearly written by people who had never stepped foot in the woods, who had never gone out on opening day.
Yep.
For that matter, may never even have been to a hunter safety class or even, I remember I learned how to shoot at actually my 6th grade camp, right? Well, my father might have taught me to shoot before that, but again, we were shooting 22. So we have an entire generation of folks who have never picked up a firearm. And because of the way the sportsmen's groups conducted themselves and the way they've always conducted themselves, and they've been in education first, we're able to get there and craft and shape that legislation in such a way that the sportsmen's community was not harmed.
Yeah. And gun legislation is extremely difficult. You're trying to save lives, trying to make people safer, trying to do the right thing. But if you're not engaged in using a gun, you would have no idea what. I've heard this phrase used a bunch of times, where making good people criminals. Like if a bill immediately makes a whole bunch of good people a criminal, unintendedly.
Yeah, and we see that all the time, and that really is one of the role that a lobbyist has to play as well, right? I mean, we are to a certain extent the watchdog. Mm-hmm. One of the things I do every day is I review every bill that was introduced, as just every one of my colleagues in this office. Every bill introduced in the legislature with the eyes of our clients who we're showing up for on a regular basis. We're looking at bills for them to make sure that something doesn't fall through the cracks.
Okay. And you somehow get to know everybody here. I don't know how you guys do it, but you clearly do know them. I've seen you introduce people. You're not just reading off a piece of paper who these people are. You somehow have gotten to get to know people.
It's important in what we do, and it's really important in life for that matter. And that gets back to as I talk to my personal children and my children here is, it's intentional, right? Everything you do in life is intentional. Everything you do is a choice. Every one of your choices has consequences. And in order to do what we do, and we see our role as looking out after our clients, right, who can't show up on a regular basis. So everything we do has to be in that mindset. And the number one thing we have to do is build relationships and get to know the people here. So it's intentional, it's a choice. Back in the day, I used to do flashcards with new members on it. Okay. With their face and the background on the back. And that was actually a former colleague of mine here who's now moved on to greener pasture. She taught me that one. Okay. And it's gotten a little bit easier over the years because term limits, they're around here a little bit longer now. Yeah. But everything is relational. Yeah. Everything is relational. You can't really get anything done if you don't have a relationship where you can sit down and break bread and just kind of talk.
I've got a bike ride I do up in the UP, and it's over the course of 10 days, and so I'm trying to get to know the bikers. At the end of it, I'm going to give them an award if they complete it. And so I'm saying their name all the time. And one time, one guy's like, "Why do you keep yelling my name out?" I'm like, "Oh, I like your name. It's a cool name. If I don't say it out loud all the time, I'll never remember it. Right. But I got to do something." One unique thing about districts that a lot of people don't understand, and there could be a group like the Sportsman's Group that needs representation, because there's 2 Senate districts in the UP, and one of them includes a good chunk of the lower Michigan as well. The first 2 districts downstate, it's Detroit. Detroit's got a chunk of one, and then Detroit's in District 2 as well. Right. It's amazing the land mass that these districts in northern Michigan occupy compared to downstate. And so by that nature, they just don't have nearly as many people representing them.
Yeah, and again, that's a purely a population thing.
That's all it is.
It's just,
math is math.
Math is math, unfortunately. We have, I live in the Grand Rapids area. We have 6 members of the legislature that represent the city of Grand Rapids. Yeah. So,
Bill, I appreciate the time today. I've got one more question for you. I don't know if you had anything else, any other examples you want to bring up? So the last question I have is, the name of this podcast is
Wealth is a choice. Boom.
and wealth means a lot of things to a lot of people. Like I was telling you before, I don't want to define what wealth means to you, but I'm really curious from this perspective, because even some of the stuff we talked about today, some people are going to hear what you said and what I asked, and they're going to say, that makes sense. I see where my position is and how I can influence and how I can help. Some people are going to hear some other things that they might say, well, damn, I don't know that my voice is going to be strong enough. So if I could put it in a wrapper, as wealth is a choice, how does it apply to the regular citizen out there that doesn't have somebody to call to represent them? How does their needs and their desire and their choices still get met? Like, what's their pathway?
100%. You can choose to sit on your living room couch and get frustrated at the headlines and get frustrated at the things going on around you.
Okay.
Or you can choose to show up. You can choose to show up at your local school board meeting. You can choose to show up at your local city council meeting. You can choose to show up at your local PTO meeting. You can choose to get online if you don't want to leave your home and join a group like the Michigan Bear Hunters Association and add your voice to the nearly 1,000 members of that organization if you're a bear hunter. Mm-hmm. You can choose to go to a coffee hour. You can choose to vote. We have democracy by choice.
Okay.
We in this country, we chose to throw off the bonds of oppression of a foreign government. Mm-hmm. We chose that, right? It's our choice. It was a great, as Benjamin Franklin is walking out of the Constitutional Convention, and he's asked whether it happened or not, and Mr. Franklin, what kind of government did you give us? And he says, a republic, if you can keep it. Okay. So the choice is ours. That choice rests in every citizen, in every person in the state, every person in the country. You can choose to get engaged.
Okay.
Choose to show up.
Okay. Thank you. I know you read all the bills, but I know if somebody's interested in a bill, they can sign up to get notified.
Absolutely.
Everything is public. Right?
Absolutely.
So you can
absolutely
pick a few topics that are important, near and dear to you, because we don't have time to do everything.
Yep.
But for me, it's conservation, it's bike safety. Like, there's a few things that I've decided I'm going to spend some time on, and everybody can do that. Pick your things that are extremely important, get attached to them, learn about them.
Absolutely, and I'm going to make it really easy for you on this one too. If you all have an internet and you have a phone, this is my go-to. If I'm not by my computer where I can click, I have things bookmarked. Okay. I know I can put in Michigan Legislature, 2 words. Okay. And it'll come up. It's the first thing that comes up. You click on it'll go to the Michigan Legislative webpage. Okay. And everything you need is right there. Okay. Michigan Legislature. All right. It'll come right up for you.
Perfect. Thanks, Bill. I appreciate you, man.
You bet. Happy to be here.
All right. Thanks.